Are you looking to be a teacher, or literature is for the hippies? that's how you think. Did you find it yet? Wait, on that last point, I have a lot of questions now. So my name is Theo. You might know my name. I am 20 years old, soon to be 21. I grew up in a lot of countries across the world, and now I'm in my final year of business management at the University of Bristol, and I'm happy to be here and discuss my education life with you today.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I grew up in China, so I did my primary school in China, 8 years. So from kindergarten till I was 7 years old. Then I moved 1 year in Barcelona, still primary school, for a year. Then I moved 4 years in New York, finishing my primary school and going to middle school. And then I finished in France, doing the end of my middle school and ending with my high school, A levels, yeah. I think, something that's an important variable is, they were all international schools, and I find international schools some come a bit out of the normal national school. They're a bit always a bit better in general, and my parents always looked to put us in good schools. So I was lucky to have parents who were really into our education. They always asked a lot of people before looking at which school is best for us. So I'd say I was pretty lucky in education system. I was better off than most children in each country. But I mean, you can compare in so many different aspects, but in general, China, Spain. Okay, China was there. There was a lot. It was hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was still a kid, but my brother was a bit older, so over there it was very pushing to learn, a lot of studying. That was the main thing, the main gist of it. Spain was the opposite. Spain was completely relaxed. It was the opposite of China. Then New York, it was I didn't tell you. New York was a French-American school, so it was half French system and half American system.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was good because the American system kind of balanced the bit stricter French and more traditional French system. The American system is a bit more free and more innovative, I would say. Mm-hmm. And so then the French system, the last one, I think a lot of people say it's quite traditional, and there's always this teacher-student relationship that hasn't changed much since the times of my parents. So it's very hierarchical, I'd say, and still very traditional in its teachings. Considering I wouldn't say I was such a fan of school growing up. I liked Spain the most because I had homework once every 2 days. I had the sun, and I had very good friends over there. I think my best friends were in that school, and we just played football all the time. So, the thing is, it was an international school. Mm-hmm. So I just had 1 hour of Chinese per day. So I wasn't in the Chinese system. It must have been completely different in the Chinese system. We still had very Western teachers. Like, my teachers were from Australia, the UK, the US. So in that sense, I didn't really experience the full Chinese education system. But, I remember my brother, he used to cry because he had so much Chinese homework as a kid. even though it was one hour a day, they gave us the most homework of everything, and it was very advanced and very pushed. So I'd say, well, yeah, I think the Chinese system is renowned for being quite advanced and pushed. But I didn't really experience the relation with the teachers much, and that's because, even though it was a Chinese teacher, she was still in this international school, so all the students were international, so it was a bit different in that sense. No.
No. Okay, that's interesting. Why no?
Well, it was okay. Well, it's all compared to what I know to be better, but a lot of the classes in the French, it was all about just learning by heart. They just had, so the teachers had a certain given course like description they had to fill in. Curriculum, yeah, exactly, and they had to stick with it, and they just try. And then they rush a bit in the end of the year if they haven't finished, and you feel like the teacher is not there to teach; it's just there to follow this curriculum. Most of them, yeah. Although, so then it depends on the teacher, but I feel they're a bit restricted in how much they can actually teach us by the curriculum. I did 1 year in public school. That was, yeah, there the teachers were pretty bad, but I don't complain because the students were pretty bad as well. And and then the other school was public and private. But I'd say I'd consider it a private school because it was all selective.
Selective?
So every student had to pass. There was a selection to get into that school. So I'd say you could maybe say it was private.
Can be counted as private.
I'd say so, yeah.
And is it international or not?
International as well, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I heard that most private schools can be international,
right,
but not public schools.
Yes.
So might be, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very true. Yes, yeah. Well, when you said when was this, when was that, it reminded exactly French schools. We all in history, for example, you always have to remember which date was this, or what happened. There was a lot of I say memorizing. But then in the English section of the school, there was much more. Well, we did essays, we studied Shakespeare and stuff like that, like A-level people do. And it was more open-ended questions. You had to argue and actually think more critically. Although the French, to give credit though, the French side also had, in the A-levels, we still had to do some critical thinking. We had philosophy, was a mandatory course.
Is it in A-level?
Yeah. It's a small course, but it's still mandatory for everyone. And that still got us, still had to, there was some thinking in that, engaging, quite interesting, yeah. So there's, I don't know if you know, there's 3 different avenues. Either you do literature avenue, economic, or scientific. And that's going to determine how, if you still do math or physics, or how many, like what do you focus on, scientific, economics, or literature. And scientific is the most renowned one, I'd say. It's where all the intelligent students go. That's how it's seen. Economics is like for those who don't really want to work, and literature is for the hippies. that's how we think. So literature people don't do any physics, or so if you want to get into an engineering school, for example, you have to do scientific option. You have to choose that as your path. And you'll just go more advanced into maths and physics, chemistry, and there. And I guess it's seen as the scientific option opens the most doors, because you can do everything with the scientifics, whereas literature you can't do engineering, or it's way harder to actually do it.
Like harder, you mean, is it allowed but will be hard
Well, yeah, because you didn't do any you didn't go through the fundamentals of maths and which you need to have.
So if I choose like literature in A level, it means I don't study any subjects related to science. I just focus on literature.
Right.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So it means students have to choose their future career when they are 16.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't it too early?
It is.
It is?
I still don't know.
So what did you choose?
I did scientific.
You did scientific.
Because my brother did it and kind of pushed by my parents. It's mostly, oh yeah, your parents push you out into choosing.
Seems science is a safe choice.
It's the safest choice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too many.
Too many.
There's, well, we do all the science, so there's math, physics, chemistry. Physics, chemistry is one, sorry, okay. Math, physics, biology. We still have French, literature, history, geography, sports. We have sports. Language, second language. So I did Spanish. You can do a third language also if you want to. And philosophy. And what else? I think that's yes, that's it. So maximum like 9. We have a lot of hours a week. We had and I did the international option, so I had, on top of all that, I also had English literature and English history and geography. So I had like 42 hours a week in school. It was horrible.
42 hours a week.
We worked more than
So
work.
you spent all these 42 hours for preparing exam.
Well, yeah, we do classes pretty much. We cover the curriculum, which will then be tested, and then you have like a month to revise, revision month. So you just revise.
Is it at the end of the year?
Yeah.
So for 2 months you revise, and after 2 months you'll take exam.
You take all the exams. Yeah.
All the exams.
Yeah. Well, the whole year is a preparation for the exam.
Whole year, like you mean just only last year of A level, or whole 3 years?
The whole 3 years.
Whole 3 years.
Yeah. They all. So the first year of high school kind of builds a foundation, and then you go into more depth in the 2 last years, and the last year is the most intense of the 3, where you have the most hours. But yeah, it's just throughout the year we have exams and projects and stuff, which just help us to prepare in the end. Yeah. Right, no. So there's no it's not like Americans. There's no multiple choice questions.
Okay.
So math is just problem question, like math problems. That's in math. Same for physics and biology. Then in French, it's essays. History, essays as well. Philosophy is essays. Yeah, it's either like mathematical problems or essays, pretty much.
So how do they assure like the validity of assessment in the exam? Like when you write exam, or when you write essay, for example, different teachers may check it differently.
Yes, definitely.
So how can we ensure that it is valid, the results?
Right. That was a problem. People saying it depends on which teacher you get, but there's always a possibility to how do you say, like in a court, if you don't agree with the grade, you can ask for it to be remarked. But you don't really do that. Yeah, you just get the grade they give you usually.
Do they give you marks or like points?
It's points. It's out of 20. There's a whole other process where you apply throughout the year. The French system is so weird. So the highest seen path to take is to go into a preparatory school, they're called. So it's 2 extra years of intense studying to prepare for exams to get into a university.
So after
your high school, yeah, you do 2 more years of more advanced.
Okay.
Like school is basically school, but just crazy school.
You do it at school.
It's at schools. it's lycée. They're called lycée,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's at a school basically, yeah. And it's very intense. And then you do exams to get into the grande école, the big schools they're called. And then big schools, it's like universities basically, engineering schools and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So overall 14 years you spent at school.
Yeah, if you do the prépa. Otherwise you can just go into university straight away.
How? Like you told that to go to the university you have to do that additional 2 years.
Yes, to the elite universities.
To the elite universities.
Yeah.
But other universities you can go without.
You can just go straight like normal, like here.
Like
yes. But they're less highly viewed. Although there's some good ones, but the top elite, you have to do that the other path. Yeah.
So you have to prepare by your own for that.
No, you still have teachers. It's like 2 extra years of teaching. But super intense. Right?
Super intense.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very competitive. Yeah.
So it's different.
And it's also it's very competitive because you have a ranking. Mm-hmm. In your class, everyone has a ranking, and you try to be number 1. So sometimes they can get like bad competition where they try to give you fake stuff to push you down, you know. And I don't like it.
Between students, right?
Between students, yeah. That's how it's seen in those types of schools. Just competition, ranking, nothing else matters.
So, like, students who were like at the bottom of the list, like ranking.
Yeah.
So they have less chance to go to the university.
Well, yeah, they basically can't get any top universities. You need to be at least top 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, you very hard to get in.
I see. So that 2 years decide, but you don't take any exams at the end of that years, right?
You take an exam at the end of the second year.
You take anyway.
Right.
That's too tough.
It is. That's why I didn't want to say.
Do students experience a lot of stress?
Yeah.
Because of
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of stress.
I guess so. Maybe lots of students prefer to study just abroad, not in France.
That's what I preferred, and lots of my school were international, so a lot of them, most of my friends left, although some stayed to do that. But I preferred to go. It was too much. I couldn't. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so the public school I went, I was like the worst. Well, there's some rough neighborhoods, and the schools in those neighborhoods, they're renowned to be pretty bad. And then there's in my city, and a lot of the religious private schools, they tend to be highly regarded. I actually I did one day in one of those schools, which is like the best school in religious school, and it was very strict. We stayed one day and then we switched, went to another school.
So, do they teach religion also as a subject?
Yeah. Well, they have every morning or every Wednesday they have all the students go to the chapel and sing and do the service. But everyone, you know those French pens with ink?
Yeah.
Stylo plume. Well, that's it's mandatory that every kid uses that to write.
To write. Yeah. So they can use like usual.
No,
pens.
they can't. They have to have a stylo plume.
That's interesting and weird.
Yeah. It was like every year it grew a bit, but it was around 2,000 a year for my school. Per year, yeah. So, and compared to my Chinese and American school, it was very cheap. Yeah, because the Chinese school now it's like more than it's like 30,000 a year, and the American school where I went, it was like 21,000 a year. So it was cheap relatively.
Euro, right? Yeah.
Well, dollars and yeah, dollars. Notoriously badly viewed and not respected and not well paid. Yeah. Well, in the rough neighborhoods, there's a lot of accounts. People tell me like teachers would get hits, like physical violence and stuff like that.
Like teachers do punish.
No, students like aggressing teachers. Yeah.
Oh my god.
And it's all, when you start off, it's you're a public servant as a teacher, so you don't get to choose what school you get to. So it's known that when you start off, you usually get placed in a bad school, which is ridiculous because you don't have much experience and they put you in the worst environment to start off. So, and then as you become more senior, you can kind of choose where you want to go. So you usually choose better schools. And
so Minister of Education decide we are assigned, like we are teachers.
Yeah.
Not like school administration.
No, it's very hard to become a teacher too. You have like very hard exams you need to pass, and in the end you end up in not like treated badly. So that's the problem, I'd say.
Do you know like specific criteria for being a teacher?
You can ask my friend who wanted to be a teacher here, but I don't know exactly.
Okay.
But I know there's an exam which is hard and you need to.
Exam like when you finish your undergraduate?
Yeah.
Then you'll take exam to be a teacher.
Yeah. Big graduate.
Do you know that those teachers need to get masters to teach at schools?
I think so, yeah. I think right, okay, she was doing it. Yeah, so there's a girl here I know from France. She's studying her undergraduate, and then after that she needs to do a master's, I believe. And an exam to get. Then they can teach, yeah.
That's a long process.
It is, yeah. And in the end, you don't get paid well.
But that's the worst.
Yeah. So that's why she's reconsidering. She's not sure she really wants to get into it. I think our subjects are way more traditional than other countries. It's just philosophy maybe is a bit stranger one. Otherwise, it's very, very simple. And there's like physical education like other countries. That's very, very normal subject, I'd say, yeah.
Okay.
But we have Latin and Greek. That's normal, right?
Latin and Greek?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So
that's an option.
Option.
There's like a little group, like one class of that. If you can choose to do it. There's always a second language, mandatory.
From primary up to high?
From secondary.
From secondary?
Yes.
Any stages of secondary school?
From secondary onwards, you have a second language. Yeah.
Can I change that? For example, in year 6, let's say, in year 7, let's say I study Spanish, and next year I change it to English?
Yes, you can, I think, yeah. The only thing that is, once you approach the exam, if you change, you have to make up for all those years and to do the exam. So if you've taken for German is another one. If you've had German for like 4 years, you stick to it in the end. You usually don't switch to another one, but you always have the possibility to switch. Yeah. So usually high schools are related to the area. So the secondary schools in the area have priority to get into the high school of the area. So if you study your secondary school next to one of a good high school, you get the priority to get in, but you still need to have a minimum grade in general. For the good ones. For the good ones, there is a minimum, there's some selection, but then the general ones, it's more everyone. Just everyone who didn't get into the good ones go to the other ones. Yes, I believe, yeah. The big cities are generally have much more like compared to small rural regions, the big city regions have better education schools. Like in the top rankings of schools, you have like all the Parisian schools, and then Lyon as well, and Lille. So all the big cities, major cities have the best schools. Yeah. So they rank it by the percentage of passing for the back.
Passing for the back.
Yeah, passing rates.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, for example, the religious school, to keep their number high, their like pass rate high, they force students to retake the course if they believe they're going to fail the exam. They tell them to retake. So in my brother's class, there was like more than half of the class were like 2 years older, because they were forced to retake the last year's class like twice.
So
it's a bit cheating, but. So I was in an environment where everyone does A-levels, but I didn't know as much, because there's also the vocational. So in my public school, for example, a lot of them didn't do A-levels. A lot of them went to the vocational. So it's back pro, like professional, like vocational. And I'd say because I didn't see too much of that world. I was more in the higher world where everyone did the. Because so I think it depends on your environment where you are, the people. They don't really encourage you.
They don't go.
No. Well, this I think depends a lot on the teacher. Some teachers just did the class. Like my math teachers, he would just write everything on the board. We copy. Well, that's a very French thing. The teacher writes on the board and you copy in your book. But I had some teachers which I had a geopolitical, like history teacher, and he was very good, and he was really into his course, and he made it more inspiring, and there was a lot of projects and pushing us to research and do stuff like that. No, not really. No, nothing. No, nothing.
Like sports clubs, dance.
There isn't. No. Not too much, but they work hard. Yeah. The French system, because I had the English in my last school, so the French system, the teacher knew everything, right? The teacher knows everything.
Teacher knows everything.
Yeah, it's seen like that. The teacher knows, and he's passing knowledge onto you, and you write down on your. Whereas the other English section, you ask questions, and she challenged you. You know, she asked your opinion. We had these seminars where we would go over a passage in literature, and everyone gave their viewpoint, and try to build your argument. You know, whereas it was way more traditional. And so the thing I think in international schools that makes it different, it's quite a recent, right? They're quite recent schools, founded recently, and I think they're like the culture in those schools are much more innovative and transformative. So and you can feel it throughout the teaching. It's more they're new schools, so they're not stuck in traditional ways of thinking and of teaching, and I think that really you can feel it in international schools. There's different environments.
Teacher isn't source of knowledge. Yeah.
Secondary is like 8 to 4:30, but there's some it's not all day. There's some holes in between sometimes, and then Wednesday is half day.
Half day
on Wednesdays.
So what time do you finish school?
So it'd be 8 to 12. 12, yeah.
Half day.
Yeah.
I read about that.
Yes. Yeah, yes, in France, it's everyone tells me you need at least a master's to get a job. Otherwise, it's very hard. Otherwise you get all the like bartender. You can get all of that, but if you want more yeah,
Good job.
yeah, good job. You need at least a master's. Compared to the UK, I've been told here they take more graduates. It's there's more of a, well, they have all these graduate schemes, for example, that they don't have in France, and it's more valued. I think I find,
I see.
which is better for me, and it's good for all graduates as well. Well, I just say the international schools. Every international school I've been was very good for more the creative thinking and in the education. And well, yeah, I have this year of public French school to compare, and it was very much different. So they're doing something good in those international schools in general. They have something there that works better. And yeah, I don't know what makes it better exactly. The teachers are something, the students also, and the material, and just yeah. Was that 1 hour? Still running? Yeah.
Running.